Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I'm here to do my best science fiction published in 2022. I feel like we are finally onto the really good stuff of the year, and this of course is a video that's going to be celebrating some of the best books that came out this year, and I hope that this will be helpful to those of you that aren't necessarily reviewers, that don't have as much access to review copies and ARCs, and so you may or may not have read some of the new releases, but often you kind of might wait until the end of the year to find out which books are actually worth the hype, which ones are worth your money and time. And so I hope a video like this is going to be helpful. I have some great books to talk about, and again, this is part of my larger series, so if you want even more favorite books, both backlist titles and new releases, I do have a playlist that's going on down below in the description box, so definitely check that out once you're done here. And I can't wait to talk about all these books. They're not necessarily all perfect 5-star reads, but for me these are some of the best books that came out this year, the books that I kept thinking about. Many of the books I reread more than once because I love them a lot, and I can't wait to share them all with you. All that being said, let's get started. First, at number 10, we have Kingdoms of Death by Christopher Ruocchio. This is the 4th book in the Sun Eater series, but I'm going to keep this all very spoiler free as I do in all my videos. And so this series follows a man who is known as the Sun Eater, and we follow him from his beginnings when he is kind of sent out into the larger universe, and we follow him onto his journey and how he becomes the man that is known, this infamous Sun Eater, and what that actually means. And so this is the 4th book in an ongoing series. It's not the last book, there still is more to come. And this is a series that I actually started this year, and I fell in love with it slowly. It's sci fantasy, so while it is technically in space, it's set on a farther planet, it follows humans, but you see the kind of distance past of where we were to where we are now, and there's other aliens, it's vast in space, but it definitely has more of a fantasy narrative. And so you do want to start back at the beginning with Empire of Silence, and like I said, I kind of fell in love with the series slowly because it took a while to really see where it's going, and in the first couple books you see the character at his more humble beginnings, and again, that's kind of the beauty of a series like this, is that you get to see them grow. And so this is the book that ended up on my list. It's a 2022 release, and it's on here because this is a book that really solidified my love for this series and really made me see the bigger picture. This one felt much more like space opera than the earlier books, and for me, again, it's just really saw the vastness of the story. It felt very epic in scale, very exciting, and it just made me oh so excited for more. I do realize that there is a second book that is coming out in December 2022, but I'm recording this a few weeks early, so at this time I've only read this release, and so depending on how I feel about the other book, it possibly could end up higher up on this list, but that'll have to come in a future video. Then at number 9, we have The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Nyler, and this is a hard science fiction book that follows a researcher, a biologist, who is studying the cephalopods, these form of octopuses that appear to be highly intelligent. Honestly, all octopuses in actual reality are very intelligent, but these ones are possibly actually conscious. And so this biologist, together with an artificial intelligence, investigate these animals, and you go from there. And this is a story that just felt so smart. It made me really excited about octopuses. I ended up doing a whole bunch of other research after finishing the book, and I just thought it was very well written. And I always love a story that involves an artificial intelligence, which in my mind fit really well within the story. While it kind of seems like it comes out of left field, it makes for a really interesting conversation about what it means to be conscious, what it means to be a person, how we treat some things or some animals like property versus when do we actually treat them as an individual. And so I really love those conversations. I thought this book was really smart, and again, just got me really excited to learn something, which is always something that I love so much about science fiction, is that I am more of a fiction reader, so when a book gets me excited to actually go and learn something, to pick up some nonfiction to go alongside, this is the kind of book that just gets me really excited for the genre and makes me love it all over again. Then at number 8, we have Dark Theory by Wick Welker, and this is the 1st book in an ongoing series. In this book, it starts out with an artificial intelligent style robot that wakes up, and he doesn't have a lot of his memory, but he knows that he needs to find his creator, and the person who he wakes up around is this thief, and together they get tangled up into this plot. This is another science fiction book that in a lot of ways reads a little bit more like fantasy because it is set in almost like a feudal regressed society. And I really enjoyed this one. It's much lighter in tone than I first expected it to be. It's really fun. There's lots of banter between the characters, lots of humor. I don't love prologues, but I thought that the prologue in this one was just really funny the way it was done and fit the story very well. Again, this book is large in scale, but I also flew through it because it's so digestible, and I can't wait to see more. I think it's going to be a long-running series, and I think it's one that you're just going to spend more time with the characters, more time, and kind of see the world expand, see the characters, and just gets more epic with each story. I can really tell where, well, I can't tell where it's going, but I have ideas where I want it to go, and I'm very excited for it. So as a start of a new series, I love this one, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here, and I definitely hope more people pick it up to help encourage the author to hurry up and give me a second volume because I'm dying to read more. Then at number 7, we have The City Inside by Sumit Basu, and this is a sci-fi novella that is a dystopian set in a semi-near future. The story takes place in a future Delhi, and in this world, or in this future, there is a strong emphasis on social media accounts, and within the story we follow an individual who is in charge of basically social media management for local celebrities. And I like this story because it is a dystopian story, and it's one that felt just oh so fresh. Most of the dystopians I've read are things like 1984 and Brave New World, which of course are very classic, but it was really interesting to see a story that took the framework of a dystopian narrative, but then made it feel, again, incredibly modern because it's dealing with social media accounts and a lot of the things that we're seeing today. I think this book is very much a nod to what's going on in China right now, which is horrifying. Really, this reads in so many ways like an episode of Dark Mirror. And so if you love that really dark science fiction, which almost appears to have this lighter tone because, again, it's all bubbly with, social media and likes and all of that. This book was just so impactful. I love the world building. I thought it was smart and interesting. I just want to spend more time in this world. And again, this is just a novella, so it's incredibly short, and it really did leave a really strong impression on me. So I do recommend it. I feel like it's underhyped. I would love more people to check it out because despite the short length, it packs a punch, and I really loved it. Then at number 6, we have Blind Space by Jeremy Saul, which is the second book in the series. It starts out with Stormblood, and in this world there is Stormblood technology that takes alien DNA, I believe, and injects it into humans to make them more like super soldiers. It gives them adrenaline rushes, just allows them to be faster, better, etc. And of course, now they are dealing with the after effects, and in the story, in the first one, we're dealing with someone who has to try to re-assimilate into society after their time is done, and of course a larger story emerges. And in the first book, it reads much more like a sci-fi thriller, which I like, but it's admittedly not my favorite subgenre. However, this second book, there's a heavy shift towards space opera, which you might know your girl really loves, and this book was fantastic. Dare I say it, and I've said it before, so I might as well say it again, this book gave me serious Expanse vibes. If you love that like near future space opera feeling where you have characters that are just really likable, there's some good witty banter, but the book never feels really goofy. It still feels like it has really high stakes. You care very deeply for the characters, and so you care to make sure that they're going to be all right, and you're never really sure if that's going to happen. But again, I thought that the technology, the world, was just very expansive and interesting, and I'm so excited for what's going to come next. So highly recommend this one. You do have to start back at the beginning with Stormblood, but again, if you're looking for a space opera, keep reading because it is coming and it's fantastic. Then at number 5, we have The Sleepless by Victor Manibo, and this is a sci-fi thriller that I'm not hearing enough people talk about. In this world, certain people have lost the ability to sleep, and you follow an individual who is one of those people. And within the story, there is a mystery at the center of the story. There's someone who has died. It appears to be a suicide, but perhaps is something more sinister. And I thought the mystery itself was incredibly well done. It was really compelling. I honestly cared and wanted to know what was happening, what was going on. And so I love the fact that sci-fi thriller really has a concrete mystery that completely holds its own, despite the fact that it's in a sci-fi world. And then the world building within this book is absolutely fantastic. It's clear that the author spent some time and actually sat down and thought about what it would mean to be sleepless in this day and age. And so I thought he made some really realistic connections in terms of how our society values productivity, how not needing to sleep would allow someone to have multiple jobs or explore multiple hobbies, and how they would just be seen as kind of highly successful. But on the flip side, you would often have a lot of prejudice towards those individuals that have these unfair advantages. And I just thought the conversation characterizations around it were so fantastic. Again, and at the middle of the story, you have this great mystery, and I wanted to know what was going on, and it was so compelling from start to finish. I flew through it. Sci-fi thrillers are typically not my favorites. They don't tend to end up on my best of the year lists just because of my personal taste. So the fact that this one is number 5 says a lot about the quality. It's very well done. It's very smart. It has a lot of depth and character work, and I loved it a lot. Highly recommend it. Please go pick it up. Then at number 4, we have Eyes of the Void by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and this is the second book in the Final Architecture series, so you do want to start back at the beginning with Shards of Earth. But this is an epic fantasy series that is highly dense with complex characters and world building that is so worth your time. If you're not familiar, the basic setup is that it's set in a future where these aliens have come and not necessarily attacked the Earth, but simply have recreated it and turned it into this form of architecture, hence the series name. And so within the book, we follow the individuals that have to run away from Earth and they set up new colonies. However, over time, the architects continue to return again and again. We follow different individuals, including those that have some kind of psychic ability so that they can somewhat connect or communicate with these individuals or see that things are coming. And the story is just so vast in nature. I love just the idea, the epicness and scope. I think Adrian Tchaikovsky has some incredible ideas that he plays with that just come to his mind apparently. And I like the first book, but honestly I like the second one even more because I really felt it fleshed out the story. I felt myself more connected to the characters, more invested in their well-being, and I'm very excited to see what is coming next. I believe there's one more book to finish up this trilogy, so if you haven't caught up, I encourage you to do so because I am dying for book 3. Then at number 3, we have Ymir by Rich Larson, and this is a standalone science fiction book that is ever so loosely based off of the classic narrative of Beowulf, but it very much stands on its own. I have not read the classic, and I understand again that the connections are very loose, but in the story we follow an individual named Yorick who is returning to his home planet of Ymir. He has left on not good terms, but he is reluctantly coming back to help the family business because there is this creature or monster or alien machine that is causing havoc on their minds, and so he's coming back to hunt it down. He has a lot of bad blood between him and his brother, and he's dealing with this. This book is dark and brooding, and what really captured my attention is the world building, because what I like is the fact that Yorick is not human. He is something else. This planet is not Earth, and it doesn't feel like it's set in a near future. It doesn't feel like the world building is just paper thin. Instead, it feels very vast and complicated. And I'm someone who often struggles to actually imagine what is going on. I'm not a very good visual reader, but this book just put ideas in my head. I could picture it. It had a grotesque feeling to it. It felt dark and gritty and tough, and again it's got like a mood to this book, but I was very much in the mood for this moody character and I ended up really loving it. Again, I read this one twice because I wanted to make sure that my feelings the first time around weren't misguided, and no, I loved it just as much the second time. Highly recommend this one. Again, I feel like it's such a sleeper hit. I'm not seeing as many people screaming off the rooftops to check out this book besides me, so please go read it. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Then at number 2 we have 36 Streets by T.R. Napper, and this is a really unique cyberpunk standalone story that follows an individual, this young woman who is living in a Chinese occupied part of Vietnam. She is of mixed descent herself and of course has trouble fitting in based off of her background. And within this story you follow her as she is involved with these gangs, and there are drug wars, and there's also in the background of the story, or not even really in the forefront, there is this video game that is a virtual reality of a recreation of the Vietnam and US war. And so within the story there is this VR angle to it. There is feuding, there are gangs and fights and violence. It is gritty and dark and unapologetic. It's very adult. There is sex and adult language and all the things you would expect, and I just really liked it because it had a cyberpunk aspect to the story, but I thought that the world building, the characters, everything was very well fleshed out. And again, it's a relatively short book, like not overly short, but it packed so much into it. You think I had read an entire trilogy based off of how much was packed into this little package, and I loved every minute of it. I thought the main character was strong and fierce, and this tough female character that didn't feel like a cliche. She was imperfect, and I loved how morally gray the story was, and I can't recommend this one enough. Again, a sleeper hit in my opinion because I don't see enough people recommending this one, and I personally loved it, hence it being at number 2. And then at the number 1 spot we have How High We'd Go in the Dark, and this is a post-apocalyptic novel that reads almost like an interconnected short story collection. So in each chapter, we follow a different group of individuals, and then we jump forward in time to a different place and follow different people in each aspect and situation. And so in the story at the beginning, we follow these individuals that are uncovering this virus that goes on to create havoc on humanity. And then we jump forward and we get to see how this plays out. Now, I read this book very early in 2022 when things were very fresh with the pandemic. And I can't believe I even picked up this book because I was not in the mood for pandemic post-apocalyptic fiction. And the chapter about the amusement park nearly killed me. If you were a parent, trigger warnings for all of the horrific things that you can imagine. This book ripped my heart out and stomped on it. I am not an emotional reader. I normally am someone who can read terrible things happening to people and not feel anything, but this book made me feel very emotional, very sad, and I give the book credit because it takes a special book to make me feel something. But on top of that, what really made this book special is where it went, because I've read so many classic post-apocalyptic pandemic style books and they all kind of read the same, but this is one that you really need to finish if you're going to start, because if you DNF the book, you are going to miss what this book is all about. And this book had one of the most incredible endings. It was just eye-opening. I didn't see it coming. It was so much more expansive and epic than I ever pictured, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with this book. I dearly want to reread it, but again, it was such a personal, emotional roller coaster that I'm kind of afraid to. But I think it's worth reading at least once, if not twice, because this book is just such an incredible ride. I cannot recommend it enough. Again, one that I think everyone should read if you can handle it. Again, warning to parents, this is a tough one, but it's a really good book, and I hope you'll give it a try. Trust me, it is my favorite book of the year, and honestly, probably a new favorite science fiction book of all time, because it was just that incredible and deserves all the hype that I can possibly give it. So that's it for this video here. I'd love to hear of the books I talked about. Which ones are you planning on checking out for yourself? And I'd also love to hear what is your favorite science fiction book that you read that was published this year. Don't forget that if you want even more best of the year content, I have several videos that are already out. And if you want even more after Christmas, I'm going to have my best fantasy published in 2022, as well as my best horror and thrillers published in 2022. So definitely stick around. I hope you subscribe. And if you want to help me out with this video, I do appreciate it. I'm still very, very sick, and I appreciate all the love and support you can give me. So if you want to give me a thumbs up, drop a comment, even if it's just a spaceship, that's always appreciated with the mysterious YouTube algorithm. And if you want to hit that little notification bell, that way you won't miss any of my best of the year content that's still coming out. Otherwise, I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye-bye.